Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Devens Jurisdiction Framework Committee meeting. This is Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. I ask that anyone on Zoom, if you have a question, please, do the raise hand thing. And then, because I can see you in front of me, and if I miss you, somebody from behind me will be able to let me know what's going on. So, all right, I'm going to do attendance. Janice Livingston, obviously myself. Robert Pomprian.
Here.
Rachel Freilander.
Here.
I said that wrong, didn't I?
It's okay.
Sorry.
These mics aren't on.
Oh. Susan Mary Redinger. Here. Victor Norman is now here. Dan Nason. I think he's not going to be present tonight.
No, he's not.
Right? Don Dunbar.
Here.
Brian Sawyer.
Here.
Logan Breeze. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Brian Hildebrandt. Not
Here.
John Cater, not here. Jim Geller.
Here.
Odile Smith. Kristen Cullen, not here. And Ryan McDevitt. And Neil Angus, probably on his way. So we'll put him, he's not here at the moment. And William Marshall. All right.
Here.
Thank you. All right, we have a quorum. All right, so first up is we have the meeting minutes from September 10th, 2025. I didn't see any issues. Did anyone else?
I have one,
Okay.
and it's something I said. And if I said it that way, I apologize, and I can't find it.
Under old business.
Okay, yeah, under old business, the very last section.
Okay.
I think what I was trying to say was that Neil Angus had indicated that there would be an update to the Housing Working Group Education Committee.
Okay.
So I don't,
All right.
yeah, so the Housing Working Group Education.
You did say that. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll look over the videotape. I know the Zoom meeting notes didn't get taken, unfortunately. So we'll look at the videotape and we'll fix that. Is everyone else? Move this one. Anyone else have anything? And anyone have any issues of approving with an amendment? Or do you want to wait till the next meeting to see the amendment put in?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor to approve the meeting minutes as amended?
Aye.
Anyone no?
Abstain.
Okay, 2 abstains? Oh, okay. Oh, because you weren't here. That's right. Okay. All right then. We will get those meeting minutes fixed and then they'll be posted when they're updated. I'll let you know when I've posted them to the website, okay? All right, so we had 2 abstain. All right. All right, excuse me. Any shareholder update on anything that's not on the agenda? Town of Air? Shirley? Harvard?
No.
Devens? Deck?
No.
Well, that was easy. Okay. All right. Under old business, we have the question 18, the boundaries of the permanent government matrix. Would you hand me the mouse, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, there we go. All righty. Get it back down to where it is. And, all right, Town of Air.
Madam Chair, I want to thank Rachel and you for your help on the boundaries matrix from the Town of Air. As you can see from our submittal, about 19% of the area, if we were to go back to the historic boundaries, would be within the Town of Air. We flagged 2 significant boundary issues would be those of Vicksburg Square, of which the majority, as we know, lies within the historic boundaries of Air, and the Moore Airfield, which is completely within the historic boundaries of Air. Considerable planning and professional analysis would be warranted to fully understand the potential development and use of both of those significant areas. In addition, if disposition were to happen, the town would want to verify all of the historic boundaries by means of a professional survey and analysis. We would from then look at the issues of zoning and land use. We would need to include private property owners, Devens residents, and other stakeholders within our portion. And then once the boundaries are confirmed and zoning is in place, we would additionally prepare an appropriate study plan in terms of the overall future planning and land use for the area. And of course, intermunicipal agreements would also be needed for some of the parcels, such as the existing Devens DPW site and others that may or may not fall in Air. So just a quick snapshot of the boundaries in Air.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Okay. Next up, Town of Harvard.
Harvard. The town of Harvard would anticipate that the historic boundaries that still exist would reemerge. And the only conflict, as has been mentioned, is potentially between Air and Harvard as it relates to Vicksburg Square housing and Bates and Almond housing. If Vicksburg Square were to be developed commercially, then I think that, along with issues with respect to utilities, the DPW barn, road maintenance, and so on, could be handled with intermunicipal agreements, has been suggested. And I would, the town would anticipate negotiating with the town of Air with respect to the whole housing issue, recognizing that the Devens residents have historically taken the position that their entire residential community should remain intact. And so there is potential conflict there that would need to be worked out. And that's it.
Sounds good. Any comments, questions? Okay. Why are you all so quiet today? Town of Shirley.
Yes, if the historic boundaries of Devens were to resort back to the original towns, Shirley would be responsible to maintain and govern the infrastructure and residents within those boundaries. Shirley might be a little bit more simplistic in regard to the boundaries, as far as, Air or Harvard might look at redefining those boundaries. I think Shirley's is pretty clear cut. They would probably remain as they are. Really the two main sections, one of which is where the town office complexes are, which we kind of already maintain is almost the town of Shirley, even though they're in the boundaries of Devens. And then the other section would really kind of be where the sewer treatment plant is. And so it'd be a little bit more simplistic, but we would be responsible to maintain and govern those boundaries.
Comments, questions? All right, thank you very much. And Devens, residents.
So I guess the primary issue here, should we become our own town, would be which county are we going to be part of?
That's true, yeah.
I think everybody else has already hit on appropriate issues.
Jim, can you speak up, please?
Sure, I just was saying that the primary issue for us, should we become a town, would be which county we'll belong to, Middlesex or Worcester.
Does anyone know historically? Well, no, never mind. Nope, I've already answered my own question. So, no. Yeah, I love it when I do that sometimes. Oh, okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. All right. The deck.
So status quo, I had probably the easiest job where the boundaries are the boundaries. The Devens Regional Enterprise Zone is the boundary is identified under Section 8 of Chapter 498. So that boundary is clearly delineated. It would continue. One thing I did want to bring to everybody's attention is on the next page. Madam Chair, if you could flip to it, is the Devens region. The Chapter 498 also defines the impact region or the economic impact zone of Devens, which is the towns of Air Harbor and Shirley, which are the immediate impacts, and then every town that touches the towns of Air Harbor and Shirley, as well as all the towns that touch all of those surrounding towns. So it's identified here on the map here as I think there's 27 communities total in the region, roughly. So just wanted to make sure people are aware of that as well.
I have a question through the chair. Neil, what is the darker line? What does that signify?
Oh, so you can't see the colors probably on your photocopy. So the dark line is the Middlesex County boundary,
Okay.
and boundary is the county boundary basically.
Okay, thank you.
So now, sorry, through the chair, seeing this, it's the touching plus the touching, right? So everything
Correct.
that touches that plus one more removed.
So all the pink is
Yeah, okay.
obviously our communities, and then the yellow is those that touch Air Harbor and Shirley, and the green is those that touch all of those areas surrounding Air Harbor and Shirley.
Within Massachusetts. Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Any more comments, questions? All right, thank you very much, everyone. All right, next on the agenda is the membership for contingency plan working group. And I know Robert emailed everybody out something
Yes.
today.
And I've got some
And-
hard copies here.
Where did I put it? Oh,
Might not
oh, you know what? We're not on the website.
be. Yeah.
No, we're not on the website, that's why. Let me go to the website so I can pull it up while you're talking.
So, again, I apologize for the last minute transmission earlier this morning. As we've been talking about the issue for the Devens Jurisdictional Framework Committee is that on occasion, when there are applicable grants that would be of interest and of value to this effort to apply for, based on our meeting schedule, sometimes some of these have a fast turnaround or deadlines in which, as the whole group, we haven't been able to necessarily meet. So the task was to put together a contingency plan for applying for grants. And so this is just a very rough draft proposal to start the discussion. Of course, open to any suggestions or edits. But in a nutshell, the purpose is that we have a defined plan for us to apply for any applicable grants that may become available with specific deadlines that must be met when the full framework committee is not meeting. Historically, we missed a couple of opportunities that we've had tight deadlines due to the meeting schedule. This plan is not intended in any way to circumvent the framework committee, nor is it intended to become the normal grant application plan, but more of sort of our emergency response. So what's proposed is that we would appoint a grant application subcommittee that would be charged with meeting in a timely manner for the purposes of applying for any applicable grants for this group. Every effort will be made by the subcommittee to keep the framework group informed and updated of its actions, activities with respect to any grants, and when possible, defer any official grant actions to the full committee. The subcommittee shall have a standing agenda item under old business titled Grant Application Subcommittee Update. And oftentimes there may not be any update, but if there is, we would report that out. The Framework Committee shall appoint a 5-member subcommittee with a representative from Air, Harvard, Shirley, the DEC, and Devens, so each of the stakeholders. And then as far as one other thing I think we should consider is a majority of federal and state grants require the designation of either an administrative and/or fiscal agent responsible for the grant. This is often a mandatory prerequisite of any grant application. To that end, the framework group should designate one of the three towns or the DEC as the standing administrative or fiscal agent for any grant application. Now, there may be grants where said agent isn't needed, but if there is one, we would be prepared that, okay, Air or Shirley is the agent. So it's, again, a rough draft proposal. Our whole intent is to have agreement on some mechanism that when there are time-sensitive opportunities, we can at least act. Again, we'll do everything that this group is acting as a whole, but there may be a circumstance where I think if we're all on the same page, we can move forward. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I guess the question that I have is, so for the grant opportunities that we missed, I mean, I assume that they weren't just, someone came up with a grant out of the blue and people only had 30 days to respond. I mean, were these ongoing annual grants, and we just, from a timing standpoint, we weren't aware of them with sufficient time? Or I guess what I'm getting at is if we continue down the road that we've been, then we're always trying to apply for a grant at the last second. Whereas, why don't we know about it way in advance? I can't believe these grants have that short of a notice period. So if there's grants that we should be applying for, then is there something that we should be doing as a committee to know about those well in advance so that we don't have to have a separate subcommittee to be able to address things at the last second?
Good question.
So I think, through the chair, Jim, the example that I can think of is, so when we applied for the housing choice grant, which we did receive, that had, you're correct, we should be always looking for grants, and many have a longer timeline. Sometimes the challenge is when we discover it, though there's a lot, right? So the housing one, there was a relatively tight timeline in the sense that we did apply, Air volunteered to be the agent at that time. We did get the grant. As you know, then the state wanted it reprogrammed more to their scope. And then Victor had brought up after the housing choice, there was another window that we could have applied for the financial study, but we weren't meeting until after the deadline. So this is definitely an anomaly. It's more of just a safety mechanism. I do agree that we should always be looking on the long term, but in the event that there is an opportunity, we could act.
I guess my follow-up question then would be, so how does this subcommittee, how would we charge the subcommittee so that we know that in effect we'd be applying for a grant that is pertinent to the jurisdiction issue?
If I may, through the chair, I think the answer to that, my assumption is that any grant that we would be applying for would use the RFP scope of work that this committee has already approved as a draft. So that is the focus. So in other words, this isn't giving this, correct me if I'm incorrect, this isn't giving the committee a blank check to go out and look for grants to apply for any number of reasons. It really is focused on what we've been calling phase one of the consultant's work, or the financial aspect. So that it would, a grant source that they might be looking at would fit with the work that we've already done creating the RFP. Is that accurate, Robert?
I think, through the chair, that was the sort of the basis of forming this response. Yes.
with that caveat, then I don't have issue.
I think the other thing to consider about having this subcommittee is that later on in the agenda, we're talking about the future meeting schedule. So this could be a good idea, as to having this subcommittee being able to move faster if we're changing the meeting schedule. Well, then we like say, okay, everybody, here's what's going on. Subcommittee's working it, and we need to get together. You know, so I think that'd be something else to kind of consider.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just with the Jim, to your point, we can clarify, and just to be clear, this subcommittee is not going to be tasked with finding grants and applying to grants. To your point, that should be here. It's more of sort of our life jacket if we have to act in a timely manner.
And if that's the case, then it's with respect to
Yeah.
possible grant money against the RFI that
Yeah.
we put together. I'm fine with that. I just don't want this
Yeah. that
committee
was
going
not
off
the
in
intent.
Oh,
a
absolutely.
number of different directions.
No, absolutely.
Question?
Yes.
So then what I could foresee, if we do go to a quarterly meeting, as was an option presented in the packet for discussion, would, the way that I felt that it worked last time with that grant was that we agreed to it, but we didn't have the time or the resources necessarily to apply for it, to have another meeting, to get it all together. So would we be discussing that any grant that is gone for, whether through this ad hoc subcommittee or quick subcommittee, or whether it's by vote of this, is that it would still be only by vote of the larger committee? Is that what you're talking about clarifying, Robert?
Well, then wouldn't that, just wait a minute, to clarify your question, wouldn't that then create a new problem? Because then we've got to get this committee together to then tell that committee to go do it? Or do we want that committee to see an opportunity, start working it while they're shooting an email, for example, to me, to say, hey, this is what we're working on, and then me saying, hey guys, this is what everybody's working on. Do you want to, let's get together so we can look into this.
Yeah, I think it's important that we just all
Yeah.
have understanding of what
Yeah.
that would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add one other thing to the chair? When we were working with the Department of Housing and livable cities, they focused our grant on housing, but there also was a category that dealt with community planning, which the grant, the RFP really fit
Right.
into it. And so in that discussion, it was determined the next funding cycle was in February or something like that. And I asked the questions, are there ever exceptions to the funding cycle? And the answer was yes. So I think that could present an opportunity for this committee to explore that possibility. And having worked in bureaucracies, there always are exceptions. And whether you can convince an agency to make the exception is another matter, but it might be something I think that this working group could do as well, is a kind of unconventional time schedules for funding sources.
Right. Yes, Neil.
I think we just have to be mindful too that, as everybody knows, mass development is not at the table. And whatever grants this committee may be looking to go for, they're not listed in this contingency plan either. And, they were one of the original members of this group. And I just fear that I don't want to get too far down a road with a grant and not have the participation of mass development, who is a key partner in this whole thing. So I think we should just be mindful of the fact that they're still not at the table when we're looking at exploring potential grant opportunities for whatever. I think it's an important point. I think the exercise we're doing right now, that we're coming to a close on, the matrix, has been a great opportunity to gather information, and it's something that we can all do without mass development at the table. But as we move forward with more strategic objectives of the committee, I think we really need them at the table.
Mm-hmm. Here's my recommendation for the moment. So everyone just received this draft today, okay? So you might not have had a chance to really look it over. So my recommendation is everybody look this over. Robert, if it's all right with you,
Yeah.
if anyone has any questions or comments, to contact Robert directly on this draft. And then at our next meeting, we will look at a more polished version. And Neil's right, but for right now, let's get this part built and that's later on in the agenda, while we still work on the other issue that Neil has brought up. Okay, so, we're gonna kind of work the two lanes. All right, does that sound like a good idea to everybody for the moment?
Yes, if you send me your comments, and Shirley, I apologize, I have you misspelled on the composition of the subcommittee.
It's
Feel-
twice.
Feel free to pull me
Shirley.
over when I go through. Just send me the edits, and then I've made some notes from Jim and others' comments. We'll incorporate everything for a final draft for the next meeting. Thank you.
All right, any further questions on this item? Comments? Okay, all right. Next up was an education group update, which I believe was coming from you, Neil, right?
Might be me.
Might be you?
Yes, so, yes, Madam
I
Chair.
thought Neil got mentioned, okay.
This has to do with the original housing grant, as this committee knows, has been reprogrammed into 4 subset efforts. One of which is an educational analysis of the region, and we define
School needs
the
assessment.
school needs assessment. We are getting the band together. When I say the band, it's the 3 town administrators, the superintendent of the Air Shirley Regional School District, and the superintendent of the Harvard Public Schools. With school starting and everything, our goal is to get the group together. Once we get together, our first task is to put together a scope for the RFP for that component, and we'll have more update for the next meeting. It's just taking a little longer to get everybody together. And we will definitely talk about that scope with all of you, but it's an opportunity to do a full education analysis of the region, including future needs. Did I miss anything?
I think that covers this regional school needs assessment
Yeah.
piece.
Oh yeah, then the
As
other,
Robert mentioned, there's four items that came out of that housing working group report. 2 other items. One was a parking and traffic analysis of the Innovation Technology Center district within Devens. That was the subject of that report. Mass Development is currently finalizing those reports. So we expect to see some information on that in the very near future. They were also, a third item was an existing buildings assessment, structural assessments on the conditions of Vicksburg Square and the old bachelor's officers quarters buildings. They have engaged with a consultant to analyze those buildings. So we hope to see a report on that very soon as well too. The fourth item was a look at a community engagement program for changing the zoning to allow for housing in the Innovation Technology zoning district, Innovation Technology Center district, which is that area that encompasses Vicksburg Square and the BOQs, basically that kind of half horseshoe around Rogers Field. Mass Development has been putting out some feelers on some potential consultants to assist in a community engagement strategy to basically conduct a series of listening sessions to go into the surrounding towns to identify what the issue is, what the potential zone change is, get community feedback, concerns, issues. All this information leading up to a potential super town meeting in the spring for a zone change to allow for adding housing to one of the allowable uses in the ITC district. So they are looking at engaging a consultant. They have partnered with the Devens Enterprise Commission on that. And we'll report, to Robert, who's administering that, the grant funds associated with that, with any updates. But right now, there's a lot in the works on all 4 of those items, so, but progress is being made.
Okay, excellent.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Neil, is there any chance that this committee could get a look at the RFP for consultant services before they go out? Specifically on the community engagement piece?
I don't know. I'd have to check and see. I don't know if there's going to be an RFP. It may be the use of Mass Development has a series of house doctors that they utilize, basically consultants that they've worked with in the past, that they may choose to utilize one of those.
But they're going to have to communicate some intent.
A scope of services kind of thing. So as soon as we see anything, I can share it when it becomes available.
And how is the work of this consultant different from the work of the housing working group? I thought that is what that group was intended to do.
It's building on that work, I believe. It's going to be building on that work and engaging directly with, more detailed engagement with all 3 surrounding communities and the Devens residents, to listen, inform, and educate on, the potential impacts of the zone change and, preparing up to that super town meeting process.
I guess my concern would be, and I'm really suspicious of Mass Development, I'll admit that they are looking for consultants to steer the final end product in a certain direction. And candidly, that's why I'm suggesting if this committee had a chance to look at the scope of the work of the consultant, that might be a way to dig a little deeper in what their intent is.
I mean, I can reach out and see if they're willing to share what they have, but I think it's, I don't know that it's the purview of this committee to be reviewing stuff like that. It's not a disposition process. This is an existing zoning proposal or zone change proposal.
Then maybe not have this committee review it. If that seems to be an appropriate perspective, then at least the towns and the Devens residents look at it in some fashion before it goes out.
It'll be up to Mass Development, I think. But, I will say that, to your comment about it being something that they're trying to force down people's, force an agenda, I think it's the whole point. And, I worked with them to talk about putting in these listening sessions where we're going out to the communities, not with a preset agenda, but listening to the communities and understanding what their concerns are and issues are, so that it's not pushing something down and it's understanding the issues. And
the issue with respect to listening to the communities isn't the issue. The issue is what do they hear from the communities. And Vicksburg Square is the example. In the past, they heard very specific things from the towns, from Devens, and in this case, it was a developer who did all the listening, did not include any of that in the final proposal they made to town meeting. And town meeting said, no, we're not going along with it.
So hopefully they will have learned from their past mistakes, and this process will be very different.
Well, Neil, if you see them starting to make a mistake or something, maybe kind of ping them and say, don't go down that path.
Missed opportunities.
Through the chair, can we keep this as an agenda item,
The education thing, it's already on it.
Not only education, but update on the reports from the housing working group. That includes more than just education.
So change it to the housing
Yeah.
group, housing
working group.
Right.
Consultant
Updates.
reports.
Yeah, updates. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's what caught me off guard when you just said
Yes.
education.
Yeah.
So speaking of representation, as I listened to the makeup of the education group, I can't help but remark upon the fact that it does not include anyone from the Devens Educational Advisory Committee, doesn't include anyone from the Devens community, and that's a concern of mine. And I know that, you know, this committee should be focused on jurisdiction, and I know the education is not jurisdiction, so that's just a side note to you, that's all.
So here's the good news through the chair. So we would welcome somebody from Devens. So I will reach out to you and John. So this one, and we'll come back with the proposal to Victor's point about as much local input on this education effort. I think having the superintendents of the 2 schools, the 3 town administrators, Neil from the deck, and yes, we could add somebody. So I will reach out, and then we haven't, good news is you haven't missed anything yet because we have yet to have the first meeting. All right, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Any other further questions on this topic? Comments? All right. All right, under new business, the preparation for state representatives on November 12th. So, I emailed Senator Eldridge, Senator Cronin, and Representative Sina. I heard back from Eldridge and Sina. They would like to zoom in on our November 12th meeting, okay? I saw Jamie and Dan Monday night, and I said, hey, you know, if you see Senator Cronin, could you let him know? You know, I've been trying to reach him, and, you know, when you're going to be zooming in. So that's where that sits at this moment, okay? In regards to that, in the email that I had sent you before, I had stated that Senator Eldridge had recommended that the 3 towns perhaps send a note to Mass Development saying, hey, we need you to come back to the table. And I indicated that I was going to talk to my board. And I did last night. And the town of Air is going to send a letter. We're going to be drafting a letter that we're going to send to Mass Development saying, seriously, we need you to re-engage, okay? Now, as I stated to last night in our meeting, we're not asking them to do any of the heavy lifting. We're not asking them to do, because that was some of what was being done when we first started getting together. They were doing all the administrative stuff and everything. We've got all that covered. So we're not really asking them to do anything but to sit and engage with us. And if they say, well, look, we can give you 20 minutes out of an hour's meeting, that's fine, you know, but we need them to engage. So we're going to be sending a letter, and, you know, I encourage Shirley and Harvard to also do that from their select board, to either, you know, say inviting them to attend our meeting per the 3 towns, or saying that, you know, we'd like to go see them as far as the representatives of the 3 towns, and that's to get them to re-engage. You know, because as stated numerous times, we do need them to re-engage. And I don't think we're asking a lot out of them, except to have a conversation with us, okay? So on that, since we're having state representatives zooming in on November 12th, how do we want to handle this? What is it we want to ask them to do besides, could you go tell Mass Development to talk to us? So that's why it's on the agenda as far as meeting prep.
Well, it would seem to me that if there are state grants that might be applicable, they'd be the people that would know about it. So why wouldn't we ask them if there's any grants that we should be
All right?
going after
All
or
right?
taking a closer look at?
All right? Anything else?
Can I
Yes.
ask, this was clearly generated at our previous meeting, so what was the discussion that brought this forward?
We want them to kind of help us
Yeah.
get to Mass Development and get Mass Development to re-engage with us.
Okay.
So that's why we're contacting them in the hopes that if state representation is also saying to Mass Development, you need to re-engage, maybe that'll work.
Okay. Well, so that would be the primary.
It's a maybe.
Yeah, that would obviously be our primary ask of them. I'd like to understand where they're at with
where they're at about the whole thing and where they're at about disposition and where they see them interacting with the towns, with this committee to move that effort forward. I have heard some things said by either one of the two over time, but there just doesn't seem to be any action. So I'd actually like to get commitment from them, if they are going to support us, what they will be able to do for us.
Okay, so that's something that we should, discuss with them.
I would hope, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
They have been to our meetings in the past.
Yes.
And Meg Delorier has stated publicly that they will come back to the table in 2030 and they will pay for everything
Right.
associated with the jurisdiction. So just for everybody's benefit, that has been stated numerous times in public settings.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Madam Chair, I think to that point, so I do like Jim's idea when the state folks are here about the grant. I think, Neil, to your point, I don't disagree because I was at that meeting, but I think we need to stress, I think there's, my own observation, there's a level of naivety by mass development to wait until 2030 and then we'll pay for everything. So that leaves only 3 years before there's supposed to be a study. And if we learned anything from history, how long did it take us, this group, to put together the RFI? What I'm getting at is, unless absent mass development having some plan that we don't know about, it would make sense to start the planning process sooner because there's a lot of work. I agree, they've said, look, we'll get back to you in 2030 and we'll pay for everything. But we're trying to say the sooner the better for planning purposes. I know we're on the same page, but I think that's the key thing for the senators and the state rep is we can't just accept this blanket statement, well, call us in 2030 and we'll talk then. It's already going to be 2026 in a few months. Sooner is better, especially getting all of the constituencies, the people of the towns, Devens, their input and involved in the process.
Plus, when this committee was first formed, they were one of the driving forces that said, let's get this committee formed.
Right.
So.
Right,
Yeah.
which is why we need them back at the table.
Right.
In order to be progressive and move forward. I was just making the comment that,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
No,
they
it's
have
good.
responded to us. They're not ignoring us. It's, this
Well,
is-
they are. They are kind of ignoring us because they're kind of like, no, we're not interested. So you can kind of make the argument that we are being ignored a bit.
If I may, even in the very last correspondence that we got from Mass Development, the Najib Ball said that the planning process should begin by 2030. So they keep going back to those dates, 2030 and 2033, and the legislation is clear that there's nothing to stop the parties from beginning before that date. And they've never, for the past 3 CEOs, they've never given us a reason.
Right.
Or reason beyond that.
Mhm.
Like, we've got too much work to do. We've got environmental issues that we've got. They haven't given us anything other than dealing with those dates. And the question I would have for Rep. Sina and the senator is, do they see 2033 as a hard stop? Is that when mass development is done? Because it says a report is due by 2033, but the report could say, we need another 10 years to finish whatever we have to do. So that would be a question. Since the legislature put those dates in there, was it the legislative intent that 2033, not later than 2033, be a hard stop? And mass development is done as the interim government. That they may still have land to be sold, some projects to undertake, but as the interim government, are they done by 2033?
That's a very good question. I know that what I said last night was that in 2033, a decision is expected. The decision goes back to the historical lands. It could becomes its own town, could become status quo. But even if it stayed status quo, mass development was like, oh no, we still got work to do and we're gonna stay, that in itself is also a change. So we know that a change is coming. I do not think that is something as big as this should make it kind of comes across when they're saying, well, we'll talk to you in 2033, that then it's going to be this rush job to get a report together. And I don't think that's fair to any of the stakeholders. Because whatever decision's made, whatever's in that report that gets to the state, I think that we would all feel good to know that such due diligence was put into it, that no matter what the decision, because we know there's going to be somebody unhappy with the decision, because that's the way it works. But everyone can walk away going, but my goodness, we worked hard on that, and I was proud of what got sent, regardless of what the decision was. And so I get very concerned when I have, this state entity telling me, no, we'll talk to you in 2030 and then we'll put this together and then get it out. That's my concern. Yes.
Also, I think to that point is I'd like to have Jamie and Dan's input on how long it takes to move something through the legislature. I mean, it isn't like that we're going to just present it in 5 days it'll be done. It takes, as I understand, it's at least a year-long process for anything to be done, and this being contentious may require longer than that. So if I'd like them to stand in 2033 with a decision having been made, because then the towns actually need to have a lot of stuff in place should it be going back to historical boundaries. We are for it to take place. So I'd like them to stand in 2033 with it all being done, and for them to look backwards and say, oh wow, you really should have started in 2028 or 2025 or whatever. So that, and then also impress upon them, there are decisions that towns are making now, a 5-year capital plan, anything that you're doing on a large basis is impacted by whether we are resuming jurisdiction or not. And if we are, then there's a lot of other things that will fall out of that. So it's really not fair to towns to have this question unresolved. Whichever way it goes, it impacts. So.
Yes.
So I guess I would like to offer an additional comment based on what I'm hearing here, and that is I think we all agree it would be great to have mass development back at the table. What I wonder is in order to get them back to the table, can we tell them that the intent of getting them back to the table is not to speed up the jurisdiction issue, not to get to resolution on the jurisdiction issue, but to engage? I mean, right now, I'm not so sure that mass development doesn't say you want us to engage right now because you want to speed up the jurisdictional issue. If we were willing to say that we're not seeking to speed up the jurisdictional issue, then maybe they would come back to the table.
Well, it's an interesting point, but I mean, why did they leave? And there, the CEO changed, and then all of a sudden it was just, nope, we're done with you. We're not going to engage with you. So, which is kind of, but I think you bring up an interesting point.
And I think, Madam Chair,
Yes.
it's important to note that, the legislation specifically says a report and recommendation goes to the legislature. So like in 2033, everything just doesn't, it's not automatically flipping over to the towns or continuing on as is or whatever the disposition scenario is. There will have to be some plan,
It has to be a phased out process, yeah.
it's going to be a phased process, right? So whatever the recommendation is, it's not going to change on July 1st, 2033. There's going to be an implementation phase for whatever happens, unless it's status quo as is, continue on as is. But
All right.
just raising that issue as,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a hard, fast deadline for everything has to be resolved by this date. We have to have a recommendation into the legislature by then and a path forward, a recommended path forward, and the legislature will do what they will.
All right. Anything else? Well, I think we got it covered what we want to talk to them about, so. That's good. All right. All right, next up, meeting schedule. So it's been brought up because we're coming up to the end of the matrix questions as to going to a quarterly schedule. Here's a recommended schedule. All right, stay along. I've written this down 5 times, so just to make sure I got it right. So we're gonna meet on November 12th because we know we got company coming, okay? Unless otherwise stated, you know, unless we have business, we may or may not meet in December. All right, we'll finalize that part of the decision in next month, depending on what we have to talk about. Okay, otherwise, you know, we might not meet in December. So we would meet. So starting a quarterly schedule, if that's what everyone wants to do, and I think I worked this out okay. Meet in January. All right. And then no meeting February, March, meet April. Okay? No meeting May, June, meet July. That, of course, could be tweaked depending on people's vacation schedule. So you could either, if we decided, you know, move it up in June, move it up to August, or just skip the summer. Okay? Then no meeting August, September, unless otherwise stated. Meet October, and then no meeting November, December, and then we're back to the January.
Still the second Wednesday of the month?
Yes, we'll keep the second Wednesday. Okay. Now, of course, depending on, you know, this little subcommittee, if a grant comes up and needs to get together, then it would be boom. I don't foresee anyone wanting this time slot here in this meeting room. So, you know, I would then send out a meeting going, hey, can everyone meet on some date to discuss this agenda item?
I think the quarterly, as you outlined it, Madam Chair, makes sense, and we always reserve the right, meaning the framework. If we need to meet, we can call a meeting within reason.
All right.
I'd like to offer a kind of variation on the theme, which is picking up from what Robert had said, but only reversing it. I think that for the work that the grant subcommittee will be doing, and the fact that we are heading into a super town meeting at some point.
Well, we don't know. We haven't heard anything about a super town meeting.
Okay,
So-
so what I'd like to suggest is that we schedule meetings on a monthly basis as we have been, but the chair can poll the members and cancel the meeting. So if there's nothing, there's no new business, there's no activity with respect to grants, there's no report on the working group, then the chair just sends out a memo, says without exception, I'm going to cancel the meeting, and superimpose on the schedule that you suggested, so that it becomes an active decision on a monthly basis whether we have a meeting.
I think that becomes a little bit confusing because now, you know, you might be seeing, so for example, for the town of Air, on our calendar is a reoccurring meeting so that no one else books this room, okay? So now not only, you know, people are going to look at the calendar and they're going to maybe see what's going on, and now it's, oh, I keep canceling. So that when we do have one, I think then there's going to be confusion like, oh, I didn't know you were going to have one. I think, you know, that, again, I think this meeting room will be fine. And I think that in enough time, I can poll everybody and say, hey, can you meet? And try to keep our normal schedule in the back of your mind. That's it, you know? But I think that just causes confusion. And I think everybody's been kind of clear that they want a quarterly schedule.
I would agree with the chair. I think both would, would result in the same, end, where if you don't have to meet, you don't have to meet. If you have to meet, then we can call a meeting. But I think, the quarterly schedule just seems a little bit more clear. So I also agree with the chair.
If it pleases the chair, I'll make a motion that we move to quarterly meetings as per your schedule, with the caveat that if we need a special meeting, we can schedule it in a timely manner.
I
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. I will make sure that the new meeting schedule gets posted so that we can start popularizing that. All right. Next up, I had submitted a policy draft, print on here, for discussion on a general policy as far as chairperson. All right, so I'm gonna just go over it and then we'll kind of go into some questions. So let me get it on here so that it's on the screen also. All right, I think I come up with something nice. And of course, we will tweak as needed. So what I did was I took the Town of Ares Select Board policy and kind of did a save as and did some tweaking. All right. Now, with respect to the chairperson, it would always be by majority vote. Now, I put every 2 years biannually, January being this is when you would rotate. Now, I put every 2 years because if we're going to a quarterly meeting schedule, this is less than a year of monthly meetings. I don't know if anybody just wants to just keep changing chairs every year or if they just want to do the business and then do a chair change, okay? The board may at any time remove the chairperson by a majority vote, okay? So if for whatever reason you feel that the chairperson needs to be changed, you bring it up on a motion, there's a discussion, there's a vote, okay? I put on here a number 3, unless by unanimous vote, the chairperson shall not serve 2 consecutive terms. That I'm just I put there as a rule, okay? Now, I put that there, one, it's on our current policies for my select board, okay? And we have actually utilized it once during COVID because we were all Zooming, so it just made sense. But I also put it there because sometimes you have somebody who nobody wants to be chair. Okay, that's been happening. There's also the occasion that if everything is going okay and there's a lot going on in the committee, that people might not feel that that's a good time to change. So I've only put it in there as just a general rule. All right. If at any time the chairperson ceased to be a member of the DJFC, for example, elected official, okay, no longer on the board, no longer part of the committee. The vice chair, which we're going to cover next, would then automatically become chair because that's the purpose of the vice chair. All right. And then the vice chair, upon the next meeting, the new vice chair would be voted on. If for some reason there is no vice chair and the chairperson is no longer, in this example, I will use Robert, okay? I'm no longer a member. For whatever reason, there's no vice chair. Robert would convene the meeting. First thing on the agenda would be to vote on a new chair. Okay, so that's all, the only thing he'd be doing. Then a new chairperson is voted on and we just move on. So, and also that the town of the outgoing chairperson does not automatically become chair. Okay, so you don't have to assume that there's always going to be, Air's still it because, she left, now Air's taken over again, that type of thing, okay? Obviously, the chairperson of the board presides over the meetings, makes sure that everybody's recognized, calls for the votes and whatnot, sets the agendas, posting the agenda. In my case, I also update the website, but that's something that would have to be fixed later down the road if I was no longer around. Okay. Obviously serve as spokesperson for the board as designated by this committee. make liaison assignments, the whole kit and caboodle that a chairperson usually does. Now, and it's on the next on agenda, we should have a vice chair. Now, the vice chair really doesn't have to do anything unless the chair isn't around. And if for some reason, like I wasn't going to be at a meeting, whoever's the vice chair, they would chair that meeting. Okay? So that's my draft. Any questions? Yes.
In keeping with the town not being double represented, would you want then the vice chair to be elected from a town that the chair does not represent?
I think that that's a good idea.
Okay. And then if the chair for some reason leaves mid-term, is the term started new, or does the vice chair step up as the chair to resume that duration of the term, or are we starting new?
I would say when we can put that to resume the,
To continue the term of the previous chair?
right,
Yeah, okay.
okay. Continue the term. I picked January because it just seemed like a good idea, calendar year.
And then, sorry, one more question. When you say unless by unanimous vote, the chairperson shall not serve 2 consecutive terms, I would potentially just put in parentheses 4 years, because you are saying the term is 2 years, correct? Is a term 2 years?
That's what's outlined because it's biannual,
Right,
which of
so
course that can
two-
always be changed,
Two
yeah.
consecutive terms would be 4 years, yes?
Okay,
I would,
As a current.
okay,
in parentheses, just to clarify it there.
all right.
Madam Chair, thank you for putting this together. I think it is good. I do like the suggestion brought that the vice chair be from a separate, so that they're not from the same town.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm getting all these notes together. So vice chair, we're going to add the comment of vice chair should be from a different town. If the vice chair automatically becomes chair, then they're continuing the term, the original term, and put in parentheses the 4 years. Am I missing anything? Yes.
We should probably not state town. We should probably say member entity or something
yeah.
to cover the Devens residents group, residents and businesses, and the deck. So just a little.
Where?
Well, it says there wherever it says town, we should have entity or member entity or some type of term, not just town, because there are other representatives than towns here, right?
Number 2.
Right, but I thought we had all agreed that the chair, vice chair, I know it had been discussed, should be from a town.
Did we?
I know it got brought up last.
Okay.
I know it's been brought up, so that's what I'm asking.
So there's no opportunity for a Devens resident
Well,
or
that's
business to
what
be
I know
a
that
chair
had
or
been
vice
said.
chair?
Okay, so
Just
that,
raise
yeah,
that as a
no, so, but I
question or
mean,
issue that we
I
might-
can change that.
So the original idea was that the town would rotate, actually the original idea was on a monthly basis. A different town would chair the meeting and the location would vary among the 3 towns.
Well,
That was,
actually, that was when we were quarterly during COVID, and we couldn't meet in your town because you said you didn't have the capability for it, and then there was no room, and that's why we ended up here. But I know that it has been brought up that the towns would be the chair or the vice chair because, for one thing, we're following the OML and whatnot, and we have all that. So,
and the whole minute-taking function was rotated among the towns.
right, that's what we had decided, yes. And it's been working as far as the meeting minutes and everything. So, but this is a draft, that's what we're
Yeah, so
discussing.
it's something to think about, just whether or not we include all stakeholders as, potential, chair, vice chair positions.
Well, that just, but that also brings up no, I'm answering my own question, so never mind. I know, isn't that great when I do that? Okay, so let's say the entity.
And Madam Chair.
Yes.
Should these rules apply to, like, I would assume the vice chair is voted in every 2 years as well, or should it be chair and vice chair at the
Yes.
top?
Yes,
Just for consistency purposes?
yes.
So everything applies to both the
Add.
chair and the vice chair?
Okay, add vice chair also for vote. Yes, okay. So the chairperson, vice chair. Okay. All right, we're going to change that to chair, vice chair, shall be elected by majority vote every 2 years. Okay. We're adding in the parentheses the 4. Okay, let's see, we're going to, vice chair would continue the term, change the words town to entity. Entity just sounds, I saw that movie.
Member, I don't know, stakeholder, something.
Stakeholder.
Something.
Let's put stakeholder. That sounds better.
Yeah, but
Okay.
So the
And the
stakeholder,
vice chair should be from different entity. Yes.
I know you don't have minute taking in here,
I was
but
gonna add that.
should that also, whomever is the chair, that entity is the, how
You say minutes will be taken by,
Minutes are rotating through the towns.
do we wanna put that in here?
I don't, well, I mean, no, I don't think, I mean,
somebody from the deck becomes chair, should the deck be responsible for taking the minutes?
well, again, as far as the meeting minutes go, I know that this bothers you because you bring it up to me all the time. You do, a lot, okay? The meeting minutes, it was decided because the towns have the OML obligation that would be taken by the towns. That's what this committee decided, okay? And it's working.
The deck is governed by the open meeting law.
Right, but I'm just telling you what the committee decided, and there hasn't been a problem. So if there's a problem and somebody wants to correct it, we will. I just don't understand why you bring it up to me a lot, and I don't understand why, because the process has been working.
Instead of making it personal, if we could
So.
just stick to the policy, it wouldn't hurt to have it if it's just.
We can put it in
done
here.
by law or by discussion, if we could just put it in, the minutes shall be taken by blank or shall be done at the discretion of the chair. I don't know how you want to word it, but
Through the chair, I think that the rotating model works
yeah, that's great.
best. Yeah, and so we just put that in there because it shifts the burden, and then also, as we all know, if you're taking the minutes all the time and trying to interact in the meeting, so yeah, so we could, that it would rotate.
Per a set schedule, or it is,
Every meeting it gets changed.
okay.
So
So
whoever's taking the meeting minutes in January, the next entity would take it at the next meeting. So that, just like we've been doing it. So, okay.
I'm saying to codify it, so it's in writing somewhere. So.
Yeah, I mean, just through the chair, we could, if to put that level of detail, I see what you're saying is January, let's say, would be air, and then go alphabetical.
I'm not concerned about that you
Okay.
have it listed by month, but I would just say minutes will be taken by a stakeholder from one of the towns on a rotating basis.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. All right, yep. Get that worded, I got that note in there, so.
Great.
Anything else? All right, I will work on those and bring back the updated draft on our next meeting. All right, with that, we need a vice chair. Anybody gonna make any nominations? Anybody want to be vice chair? Town of Shirley?
We're open to being vice chair if there's no other major interest. I think the town of Shirley would be willing. So
All right, so
Madam Chair.
we want to pick an individual from the town of Shirley? How do?
I would make a motion to nominate Brian Sawyer, the town administrator from Shirley, to be vice chair.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion, nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Congratulations, we have a vice chair. Woo! Whew. That was a tight vote.
I hope we're still friends.
All right, so that ends the agenda. So anyone here for public comment? Paul.
I think better sitting down. Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I've been taking some notes, and for the people on the school study that was mentioned at the top of the meeting, I would urge you to include physical considerations. That is to say, my concern would be just things like head count, right? Number of teachers, number of students, maybe number of classrooms. But as the long-serving members of this committee will know, I'm concerned that mass development will sell every acre of saleable land, even though explicitly in 498 it calls for them to deal with schools, for example. It's right there in the language that that's part of their charter. And when we still have undeveloped land near the residential areas that can be used for municipal use, I would urge the study committee so that when the consultants are hired, they're charged with finding specific parcels of land at Devens that would be suitable in future years for school buildings, playing fields, sports fields, the whole thing, right? Without necessarily regard to whether it's an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school. Okay, well, I think we can say that we'll kick that one down the road. Because in this day and age, schools take a lot of land, okay? And having land a mile away at the other side of Devens from the residential areas would be a bad thing. I think we can all agree on that. Secondly, as the people from Harvard will know, I just had the privilege of working on the Get Out the Vote campaign for the special town meeting that we just had. And in that special town meeting, the town was asked to approve the purchase of some land, for which the town had the money in our reserve funds. So it would have been no net cost to the taxpayers. We've already taxed them for the money. It was sitting in the bank. And yet, that article failed by 3 votes in the spring. It passed by 3 votes a couple of weeks ago. I would say that there is a strong ethos, if you could use that word today, of no new spending. And so this notion that, or this news really from the deck that mass development may be working on a super town meeting and an educational campaign for a future zoning change for Vicksburg Square, I just want to go on record as saying that there's plenty of people, certainly in Harvard, who will look very hard at what the cost to taxpayers might be for such a proposal. And I would just say there's probably about a third of them that even if the cost is presumed to be negligible or zero, they'll still vote against it. Okay. Now I suspect this is a majority. No, zoning change majority 60%. What is it these days?
Two-thirds?
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds.
It's still 2/3.
It's still 2/3.
Okay. So that's
Except at super town meeting, then it's majority.
okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, I just want to warn people that this is where taxpayers are these days. Okay. Third, to the comment that mass development should be here, we should be careful about what we do because we don't have their participation. Yeah, 100%. But I would just say the flip side of that is, please do not let mass development hold this group or hold the towns hostage prevent progress on this for the next 5 years, or as of January, the next 4 years. I'd be willing to do a citizen's petition in Harvard, so we'd have the whole town vote to ask mass development to come back to the table. Okay, I think we could probably get people to do that in the other towns and maybe at Devens as well. I'm not sure they would change their mind, but it would be, you know, a plebiscite, effectively, on the issue. My fourth point is that, and I'm surprised nobody brought this up, because in terms of forcing mass development to re-engage with us, there's a trivial way to do this. The legislatures work for us. They do not work for mass development. We vote them in, we give them donations, they want our votes. They don't answer to mass development, they answer to the people in this room and our constituents. A one-word change to 498 would basically call their bluff. Change 2030 to 2025. Okay, done. Now what will mass development say? They can't rest on 2030 anymore because it's gone. It'll be out of the language. That's well within the capabilities of the state legislature. It would be introduced by our representatives. I can't believe that somebody from Westfield or North Adams would vote against something like that. So that's something this committee should consider. Now, having said that, it's always we talked about this on the HDC, on which I serve. The concern is always, well, if you send the legislature a wish list of any size for 498, there's going to be kind of a piling on process. And certainly there are other things I would love to change in that. But that's still the debate that this committee would be ideal to work through the issues on. For instance, you could add the residents as a party by a very simple change to 498. You could specify the means by which the utilities would be disposed of. Right now, mass development, that's not called out for in 498. Mass development could just call up National Grid and say, it's yours, send us a check. Okay? And there goes the lower electric rates that have attracted so many businesses and created so many jobs, because it would go to market rates. The reps work for us, don't forget that, okay? They have the power to change the law. Mass development says they're going to follow the law, great, wonderful. Finally, to answer the question about the legislature, I researched this a couple of years ago, and I even drew up a schedule, which I would be happy to share with you. But basically, the legislature is a 2-year process. It starts in an odd year because the elections are in an even year. So you may recall there's an election in about a year ago, 2024. We had lame ducks then from November of 2024 to December 31st of 2024. Then in the first week or so of January of this year, the new legislature took effect. That legislature will be in effect for 2 years. So they start in an odd, they end in an even. So we are in the first year of a legislative term today. So I looked and I thought, so what's the deal with 2033? Where does that fall in the legislative term? Well, that would be, by the way, it's June 2033. It isn't January, it's June in 498. So you'd already be 6 months in to their 2-year term. And the way the legislature itself wants to work, now there can be exceptions to this, but the way that it's designed to work is the legislators file their bills at the beginning of the term. They are assigned a committee. Committees hold hearings on it, and then eventually, when the committee's done massaging it, figuring it out, they either kind of forget about it, or they take it for a vote. So I asked Jamie flat on how long he thought it would take to get the report, quote unquote, called for in 498 through the legislature. And in fact, you should ask him this question again when he's on Zoom next month, please. Pin him down on this. He said he thought it would take a year. But it could take 2 years. It can't take 3 because every bill that doesn't get acted on is thrown in file 13. Okay, it's thrown away. Each 2-year legislative session starts from ground zero, starts all over again. So conceptually, that report, conceivably, I mean, that report that would be filed in June of 2033, it might not even be acted on, in which case it could be 2035 before it gets passed, because that would be the start of the next legislation. Is that really what we want as towns? You tell me. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment? All right. So for our last permanent government matrix question is redevelopment authority. Yes.
If I may, through the chair, I think what the committee had in mind when we put these 19 items together, and Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, is that would be the relationship between the permanent government and mass development after mass development is no longer the interim government. What would the relationship be? And there may be no relationship. There may not be any work to be done, but there could be land yet to be sold. There could be buildings yet to be redeveloped. So what would be the relationship between the town of Devens or the towns with the redevelopment authority, which is mass development? That is.
As opposed to creating a new redevelopment authority.
Yeah, the presumption here, mass development has title to unsold land and unsold building. That would continue unless the legislature took it away from them.
Understood.
Okay.
Anything else? So for the next agenda, we're going to have we're calling it the Housing Working Group update instead of an Education Group update. Is that correct? We're going to have the contingency plan for grants on the agenda. Obviously, state representation. I'll have the new draft of the policy and the redevelopment authority. Am I missing anything for the next agenda?
Hopefully, the presentations from Cena and.
Yeah, that's on.
Well, yeah, that's on there. Yeah, because that's for the state representative.
And I just suggest through the chair that this committee is really up until now. This committee has really operated on an informal basis. I think the codifying the chair and I think is a good thing. But if there's anything else that should be formalized, this would be an opportunity to do that.
Like what?
Meeting schedules.
Yeah, we're
taking minutes, for instance, was brought up. But if there's anything in the course of the governance of meetings that we should be brought up, this might be a good time to do that.
Okay. If anyone has anything they want added to the agenda, please send it to me. Okay. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.